I think a reference to a study that we did a few years ago, that what are some of the skills that drive customer loyalty, that makes customers keep buying to buy more, and to tell their friends to buy as well. And we know far and away the number one critical skill for sellers was demonstrating a unique insight. So if we've known this for so long, conventional wisdom would say we got to be pretty good at this point. Well, unfortunately, not so much. Our recent research, this assessment, the buyer study we ran in 2020, shows that on average, our buyers rate us at 50% less effective of demonstrating unique insight this year versus last year. That's a pretty monumental change, Petek, in sentiment, right? So how do we describe it? And we're still evaluating this. We're still continuing to do some follow-up research, but what's emerged is really two key items, two key drivers of this. One, first and foremost, and I don't need to tell anyone on the phone this, I don't think it's going to be surprising, is the bar is higher. There are more senior people involved in these purchase decisions, signing off on them. They're asking you more difficult questions. They want to know about the resiliency of your supply chain. They want to know about the state of your funding. They want to know about the health of individual business units. They're holding us to a higher bar. That's one. And then two, and again, this is no surprise, I think, to anyone on the phone, is, to put it plainly, people are pretty pissed off right now for a whole multitude of very justified reasons. So sentiment is just going to skew slightly more negative. And Petek, as I mentioned, and you've been out there, you've been continuing to train salespeople and commercial folks at Fivetran, trying to continue to build the fantastic growth business you all have. I mean, what else are you seeing out there? Other things that you take away from this research when we first shared it with you?
Thanks, John. I think, there are a couple of things to take a look at, and I would like to approach this from two sides. One from the buyer side as a person who's actually purchasing for our company, and one from my background in sales. So from the buyer standpoint, we have so much going on, and we get hit by so many people reaching out to us and says, hey, I want to talk to you. And in that email context, if there's nothing out there, I'm going to delete that email. Not because I'm a bad person, but it's because there's so many other competing information coming my way, and I have my own objectives and initiatives that I'm working on. If you're not showing me why I should talk to you right now, that's going to be deleted. And again, it's not because we're trying to be bad people. It's just we don't have the bandwidth to look at something that doesn't make sense right away. So on the other side of that, being in sales, I understand the salespeople too. We give them so many great tools that they can automate everything. Mm-hmm. They have all these swanky automations and cool enablement that's coming from people like me. And they do think that should really take place of doing your homework and giving people why you now. And I can assure you that's not the case. Use the technology to help you out. But if you replace technology in a place of doing your homework and giving people why you now, why am I reaching out to you today? Why should you talk to me today? And if you do not do that, how is that going to impact you? You're going to be really hurting because people are not going to be listening to you. So we expect a ton from you, salespeople. I really feel for you. And I respect everything that you do. And one thing that I will say, the best thing that you can do for yourself right now is prioritize your homework, driving these insights, if there's nothing else, and prep for that call. So I could absolutely resonate with this, and I will blame, to a certain extent, our technology and how we prioritize time.
No, it's fair, Petek, and you make a great case. We talked about this in the last webinar for folks that didn't get a chance to take a look. Capture attention by leading with insight, and just the crap, frankly, that gets sent out to people and automatically deleted. So that's great guidance for activation clients to go back and watch the replay of that in the Challenger Activation Portal. And to your point, on the second one you made, and well articulated as always, I knew this was going to be how you were going to tee it up for us. So I'm so glad you joined me for this conversation. It's, let's not divorce ourselves as sellers from the responsibility here too, right? Let's not just push it back on the buyers. And I think the question that we've been asking and we've been challenging some of our clients on is, are you bringing the same message to customers now that you were in February? Said another way, how has your message changed now versus 6 or 7 months ago? So that's an opportunity for us to really pressure test that commercial insight, the message that we are bringing to customers. And a few folks on the line will probably think to themselves, John, we're an insight organization, right? Like we're bringing this messaging. And what we've seen is there's really three schools of thought, or three ways that you could go after customers and engage in three different types of conversations. One, of course, is that product-based message that we all know and know well, that elicits that kind of, is this essential response from the customer. The question-based, death by 1,000 paper cuts. Do I have time for this? Are the problems that I'm articulated, can this supplier actually help me solve them? And when you look at these two approaches, back to our theme of uncertainty, there's a lot of uncertainty in these two conversations. For the product-based reasons that I mentioned, my ROI is not your ROI. I'm not connecting the dots. I'm not quite sure. And the same thing for the reasons we articulated on the question-based. So the way to remove that uncertainty is to lead with that insight-based approach, to basically say, if you continue on the status quo, if you do nothing, this is what it's going to cost you. But of course, like Fivetran, right, these organizations are saying, well, we are an insight-led organization. We are bringing this conversation to customers. We have built these commercial insights. Like, we are absolutely sharing insight with customers. And we know this choreography. We know it well. The why change, why now, why us, everything from the warmer to the solution. Hey, we built these, right? We've been trained on them. We got it. We're delivering insight. To which the question I often say back, a bit tongue-in-cheek, is, are you sure? And as you know, Petek, before COVID, I spent most of my time on the road doing about 50 or 60 sales trainings a year. So I was in front of a few thousand salespeople each year. And every time when I'd go in and train them at different stages of this journey on commercial insight, I would notice 4 common pitfalls. First and foremost, the show up and throw up. And I'll take on my persona as a salesperson for this one to basically say, oh yeah, I know y'all built this fantastic commercial insight. You've gathered folks from sales, from product, from marketing. You put some great minds together. They leverage their collective experience. It's really great messaging. But I'm just going to go to the customer and I'm going to tell them all about us and give them the feature and benefit stuff. Hard to drive urgency, hard to drive engagement. The second is one of my favorites, the evil Knievel, right? Where you deliver your warmer and your reframe. And at the end of the reframe, the customer says, yes, that's a problem for us. And you as a seller say, great, we got a solution. Let me tell you about it. And you skip that rational and emotional case for change, the valley of despair, jump right to our solution, just like evil Knievel would. The third, we call the puddle of despair. So you deliver your warmer, your reframe, like I mentioned. You're not quite comfortable having that really challenging constructive tension conversation. Again, that valley of despair. So I'm not going to bring you through the valley of despair. I don't want you to get your feet wet. I'm just going to bring you through that little puddle of despair. And then fourth and finally, the happy years, which is the most nuanced of the pitfalls, where you deliver your warmer, you got your credibility, you have your reframe, you make your case for change in the rational drowning and the emotional impact. And at the end, or at the bottom of that valley of despair, the customer essentially says to you, you know what, you've got me. This is a problem for us. We need to do something about this. How can you all help? And the seller, as we all have at some point in our career, gets happy ears, jumps right to our solution, tells them all about us. Now, at face value, seems like not that big of a deal, but what we're missing is a critical step. That new way forward is the objective counterbalance to our reframe. If we've told them what the average organization is doing, what they're missing about that approach, if I can get you to agree to these 2 to 3 tenets of what the best organizations are doing, it's going to be really hard for you to fight me when I say that's what our solution is built to do. So the ideal customer response to that new way forward is, yeah, it'd be great if we can do that, but we don't have the resources, we don't have the time, we don't have the budget, we don't have the people. To which we, as the salesperson, can say, well, the good news is that's exactly what our solution is built to do. So as you look at these 4 pitfalls, I think the question for our audience is, which of these are you guilty of?